All right, so welcome to the Diversified Financial Planning Solutions Mentoring Forum, sponsored by the Cal Lutheran University's Financial Planning Program. Today's forum, as I mentioned before, is sponsored by Cal Lutheran. So the Financial Planning Program has two flexible degree programs. We have curriculum designed to prepare students to sit for the CFP exam, to further the knowledge of those already holding the CFP designation. The MBA in Financial Planning also provides business and practice management skills for the working professional. And the MS in Financial Planning focuses on the art and science of financial planning and client communication. So I'm going to introduce you, Mr. Jeffrey Lang. He is the Director of Supervision for the Southeast Division and a financial planner of Lincoln Financial Advisors, a registered investment advisor and a broker-dealer. He has been a member of the adjunct faculty for professional studies for the CFP program at the University of Baltimore and Villa Julie College, and is frequently invited as a guest lecturer at the American College, the University of Maryland, the University of Baltimore, as well as professional associations. Mr. Lang has served as the Financial Planning Association of Maryland's president in 2003, as well as its chairman in 2004. So with that, I give you Mr. Lang.
Thank you. Thank you for not reading the entire thing, because I was going to go to sleep, which is tough. I'm trying to figure out a way to say, and the bio is in the book. And that'd be radical. Hey, so this is a very short set of issues that could spawn a much larger conversation, and I hope it does. This is not a lecture. I'm not talking at you. I'm talking with you, and I'm hoping you're going to see the reality of whether or not an advanced directive is a very good tool. Whether or not it's just your family or yourself or your clients, it's important to look at this and say, if this is such a great tool, how come only 30% of the people actually have one of these? Even though 60% of the people said it would be a great idea to control their stuff. Where is the hiccup? Where is the gap? What is the drag here? Next slide, please. So the first thing I wanted to ask you is, do you remember the Terri Schiavo case? And and when I do this live, I kind of pick on people and I say, they probably only mentioned it once. Nope, they mentioned it a million times. Well, they probably only mentioned it like during 1 week. Nope, over years and years and years. Or maybe only in the morning show. No, all day, all night, year after year after year after year, we heard about Terri Schiavo. And so here's my question. How did that change your advanced directive? What did you do differently now that we've been aware of the tragedy? And I find that overwhelmingly people, even though they saw it once and they were aghast, I think they became immune. I think they became numb. So I don't really care. This is a personal conversation. I don't care whether you think the state or the federal should rule. I don't really care that you think that life is more important than death, or her parents versus her spouse, or the state of Pennsylvania versus, say, Florida. We had all of these constituencies, we had all of these stakeholders, we had all of these people. And it doesn't matter what you wanted, but it wasn't in writing, which is what the issue is. Over and over and over and over, all of the issues that the family had to go through with each other really could have been addressed much more appropriately. I think the issue is this. So next slide, please. I think it would be a great world if there were no sickness and no injury, no pain or no death. I remember writing, I'm also an ordained minister, by the way, one of the things that I do, and I accidentally invented something called the synchronicity prayer. And it's the regular prayer, whatever it is you're going to say before you take grace. But then it says this, if you wouldn't mind, would it be okay if my mind and my body crapped out at the same time? And I'm asking that at the end of my day, as in the end of my days. And many of you are over the age of 25, so you know exactly what I mean. Okay, your mind and your body are not synchronized, not in life and not at the end of the day. So one of those issues is when you're not synchronized, it's possible that you may need to tell people what kind of services you need, or be able to identify someone who can speak for you when you can't. So just as an exercise, we're going to go on pretty fast, but I want you to think about, it's either a positive or a negative. It's a yes or a no. It's a 1 or a 0. But here's the point. If we had this less utopian existence, maybe we should run through these what ifs. Next slide. And by the way, you're gonna keep moving. What if we consider the possibility that we might need assistance to remain healthy and alive someday? What happens if we actually made that a yes or a no, a 1 or a 0? Next. What do cases like the Schivos motivate us to do? And what if they kind of motivated us to resist the natural aversion to death and disability, morbidity and mortality? What would that look like if we kind of got over that because we saw how the family suffered, how she suffered, and how, frankly, the medical community, legal community, and the rest of us suffered along with them? Next slide, please. What if we did not give up control at a critical time for ourselves and those who care about us? It's very interesting. The whole purpose of this document is to exert control. But when we do it poorly, we actually give away control at a time where we really can't defend ourselves. Next. What if we examine the culture and spirituality, our own, of course, to form decisions that are consistent with our personal philosophy about living, the quality of life, and the quality of death? Before we go too much further that, I didn't say your quality of life. I just said everybody's quality of life. The people who care for you are subject to something called allostatic load. Allostatic load is the quantification of the result of never-ending stress of caregiving. Caregiving reduces the quality of life, and it reduces the longevity of life. Proven stuff. We can talk about it another time, but I'm just saying, what does a good life look like? What does a quality of living look like if and when? And more importantly, a quality of death. How do you want to go? So just a side story here. There's a guy by the name of Atul Gawande, and Atul is a doctor, and he said he learned a lot about medicine, knew nothing about dying. All he knew is he didn't want to go like his grandmother-in-law. He wanted to go more like his grandfather. Now, his grandmother-in-law actually was guilty of the heinous crime of being short. She just wasn't tall enough to reach the stuff in her house, so somebody, meaning her children, decided she couldn't live there anymore. They took away her dignity and her freedom. They just took it away. And they put her in this place that, frankly, everything was provided, but she was mad. She was ticked. She was totally dehumanized, and her dignity was just bruised. And so she stopped talking to people. And when she had a medical issue, she didn't say anything, and she sat and suffered until it got so bad that she was dying. And what they did is they took her away, and they put her in this building with garish lights and tubes and electrodes and all kinds of stuff. And so there were no fond goodbyes. There were no last words. There was just the garish light of over treatment from the medical community. Now, interestingly enough, Atul Gawande's grandfather fell off a bus on his way to a business meeting at the age of 106. Which would you prefer? Next slide, please. And what if we spoke to our medical advisors to more fully appreciate what is, quote unquote, possible now and into the future? You know, as early as a few years ago, we would treat DVTs, deep vein thrombosis, and that was a big deal. We'd be cutting things, and we'd be, putting people, in homes and all kinds of stuff to treat them differently. Now they give them a pill and send them home. What happens if the document that you wrote, because your understanding was rudimentary or aged, and because of that you said, well, if this happens to me, I want to just have you let me go? What happens if there's a pill or a process or a procedure or a prosthetic that would include increase, life, quality of life at least? Next slide, please. What if we discussed our thoughts and feelings about the kind of care we might desire in various situations with close friends and family? See, it's taboo. We don't talk about it. If I'm in a vegetative state, what do you want? Well, define vegetative. Is that like, football halftime vegetative? Is this like, golf on a Sunday vegetative? Just trying to figure out what kind of stuff we're talking about here. So we have to talk a little bit more in detail, and we have to talk about what we prefer to have. See, in the Terry Schiavo case, it was very serious because Michael, her husband, said, I know what you would have wanted. Do you think it's possible that they didn't talk about it as a new married couple? Is it possible that we haven't had that same discussion with our family? Next, please. What if somebody who knew us very well would act in our stead, and should we become incapable or incompetent? Now, let me tell you what that means is that there's always a worry that if I select someone and they would say, well, what would Jeff do? What do you think Lang would do if he were here? That's different than what they would do. So do what you think is best is different than do what I would do if I were here. And that's a worry. I need to make sure that you're going to do what I would do with the same circumstances. Next. What if we cared enough to reduce this conversation that we just had to empower our proxy and inform others of our intent? You got to give people the documents so that they can act on your behalf. And in addition to that, you got to not say silly things like keep me comfortable, because that's not instructive. It doesn't help people know what to do. In fact, most people don't really kind of get this, but keep me comfortable means give me lots of morphine and stop even feeding me water. Believe it or not, they kill people by dehydrating them, but that's okay because they're comfortable. I'm not sure that that's what I meant. But who's going to discuss that with me? Is that my priest? Is it my doctor? Is it my lawyer? You know, who's going to do that for me? Sometimes it's the financial advisor to say you got to have an agreement like this. We have one for finance. You got to have one for your person. Next, please. What if we shared in this document our personal thoughts and philosophy, but also use language free from interpretation? Some of the very best documents that are out there now, and again, these are not the standard ones that are, for free on the internet. They're the ones that simply said, let me tell you what I mean. I want to be able to hold the hands of my grandchildren. I want to be able to look into the eyes of my loved ones, and I want to say goodbye. Now, that's in a little box. And right under that box is all the legal stuff that says, here's the stuff to make that happen. But we don't have a document that says, here's what I think, here's what I fear, here's what I don't want. I don't want somebody to stuff me and put me in a corner, hypothetically. Next. What if we ensure that everybody, I mean everyone who needs to be aware of the document or needs to have an actionable copy is in the loop? That means the person that my attorney, in fact, that they know what to do and they have the power to do it. But also anyone who is not in the agreement. If I've got three sisters and one of them is the attorney in fact, they're my director for me when I can't speak for myself. I got to tell the other two, hey, gals, you're not it. Failing to do that, these are messy. And by the way, all of these what ifs come from real life examples of the 42 years of practice, and they're nightmares and fully avoidable. Next. What if we could reduce or eliminate the interference of people who are not intended to wield any influence in our personal care decisions? In some of the books that I've read, on my way to writing about this, they call this the nephew from Peoria. This is the guy who has a terrible relationship with Uncle Fred, but he blows in from out of town and he threatens the doctors and the power holders and the nurses, and demands that you treat him absolutely to the nines, regardless, by the way, of the signed wishes and the power. So basically, people come in and threaten people, and they override these documents. They make them treat in a way that was not intended. Next, please. What if we understood the financial impact of the decision we're going to make? You don't know how much that service is. You have no idea whether or not by saying, treat me this, whether or not you've taken your spouse or your family and you've disinherited them. You don't know that because you don't know what the expense is. Next. What if we could avoid unwanted care? We'll talk about that in a little bit. Or being relocated under the power of others. You see, I want to go to Florida, and somebody that I'm in charge of, I'm going to take them with me to Florida. By the way, the rules are different there. The circumstances are different. Certainly, family here couldn't visit them, right? So that would be an issue. What would happen if you could avoid that, but also unwanted care? Let's talk about that a little bit. I think a little bit later in these slides, you'll see that we have a problem in the U.S. in that we are so afraid not to treat everybody until you make us stop. Now, I don't know whether that's a liability issue or an economic greed issue. All I know is that when we do the work that we do, we measure the total amount of money spent over a lifetime. And half of it is in the latter years. Over 30% of it is in the last 60 days of life. Imagine this, you've measured something from when somebody died and went back 60 days and found that 30% of the total lifetime expense was then. And by the way, I would argue that the outcome was the same. But we can't stop treating people because we don't have the power to say, please don't. DNRs, et cetera, et cetera. Next. What if advances in medical technology did not render our wishes that should be moot or conflict with our instructions? So what happens if I say, keep me comfortable, and the thing that I was saying I didn't want isn't really a problem anymore? So we'll go further than that, but that's the medical advances. And next, please. What if insurance plans, including government programs included, did not carry more power than we? Imagine this. They tell us where we can get care, for how long we can get care, because we don't have any money. The vast majority of Americans, 46%, the other day there was an article that said 46% of Americans couldn't handle a $400 unexpected auto repair bill. We don't have any money, so we've got to go where they tell us to go and get care at the level that they tell us to get. Next. What if we could protect against over-treatment? Already covered that. Next. What if the country could avoid becoming bankrupted? I mean, you've seen the demographics. We have lots and lots of people my age and older who are going to need this kind of care, and it's more and more expensive. Well, my question is, what happens if we run out of money? Somebody's going to have a tax change, or it's going to be rationed, and it's a very concerning issue. And by the way, the offshoot to this is, imagine you're dealing with retirees who are expecting to be able to have a certain tax rate, but that because of the situation, the tax rates go up, which means they have less to live on. Their financial plan changes. Next. What if the creation of an advance directive was automatic? See, right now we have to go do something. What happens if you just had a default one? Wouldn't that be an interesting idea? Next. What if the level of care was set as a globally recognized human standard? I'm working on this with a number of people around the world, and we're seeing if we can do this. And that requests for care above that, meaning a certain level, would require a special document outlining care and financial responsibility for it. So we say, rather than being at 10, everybody gets 10, nobody cares who pays for it, it's a 10. If we go back to 7 and say everybody is entitled to this 7, you're comfortable, you're all of the things that you would see. And again, we're in the US, we're a little weird, but imagine this around the world, that you are terminal, and we know that there is a process by which we can keep you comfortable without over-treating. Now, the point was, if you wanted more than that, you can have it. Have an advance directive identifying specifically what it is that you wanted and how you're going to pay for it. Because right now, the government is paying for it, and we're running out of money. And beyond that, demographics are swinging hard toward lots and lots of older people living less well longer. So imagine a payout, if you will, that is significantly longer and higher than we're able to support. Next. And what if the standard state forms available for free online? By the way, did I mention they're online and they're for free? It's embarrassing to me. They're free. Imagine if that alone, the availability, was enough to increase the use of this document. Next. Good. So to sum up, my kids came to Thanksgiving a number of years ago, and on their plate before they sat was a durable power of attorney form, the state form, my attorney's phone number in the form of his card, with a note that simply said, "I love you. Don't come for Christmas unless this is complete."
You were muted when you said that. Can you repeat that?
Yes, so I'm sorry I did that. Yes, so what I said was I put the form, state forms, on their plate before they sat for Thanksgiving. Of course, we always stand for grace and stuff. Point is that needed to be done. I told them, I said, "I love your mother and I love you all, but we will fight over nothing more aggressively than you. We never have. I mean, as parents, I don't know how we had kids, because we disagree about everything. And if you're hurting, your mother's going to want to keep you forever, and I'm going to want to let you go when it's time. And we will not agree, and we will not survive. You're adults. Fill out the freaking free form and take your mother and I out of the game, please." And so that was the deal. And by the way, it was very dramatic, but they did. All of them had them completed, and they all came for Christmas. And I just said, you just can't put that on us. We're not strong enough to handle that. The loss of a child is bad enough. But imagine arguing, wondering, whooshing, if my wife had it to do, she would bankrupt herself to care for that child. She would. So anyway, let's talk. What do you got?
He was muted. Do you have any questions?
Yeah, I'm thinking about it on a part-time basis. I was thinking, I've always been toying with the idea of associating with somebody who is retirement minded or in that vicinity. Um, but, even though in the news everybody's saying, oh, the baby boom generation is going to be retiring, people are retiring every day, but it's hard to find people in that. Well, yes, they do, but it's hard for me to find somebody in that area because most estate planners are sole practitioners, and nobody wants to think about their own mortality, just like our clients. And 9 times out of 10, nobody's thinking about any transition. So it's kind of an awkward situation to have for somebody and say, oh, hey, when are you planning on retiring? Maybe I can help you transition your practice. It's kind of not a conversation you want to have with somebody.
Right.
The approach is slow and it has to be very subtle. But I was thinking maybe if I worked for a firm and got some background in probate and actual sitting down and drafting documents, I think I would be number one. It would kind of put some structure in my life, getting out of my home office for a couple of days a week and interact with other professionals. And
I think it's a great points that you bring in there. Now, I know it sounds really weird, but I often evaluate what I'm doing and where I'm going in terms of
somebody already.
Say again?
He's been associated with the younger attorney for many, many years. And he would have been ideal for me because, we like each other and casually we get along. But he has somebody. I talked to Anthony Beller, and he's keeping an eye out for me. And I thought of emailing you, and I also thought of emailing Kira as well. But more so than just working with somebody who wants to retire, I was thinking maybe I can provide some support based on my background, experience, and expertise to somebody who's still active and has a busy practice, and I can provide some leverage to that person. And I could test it out for maybe 3 months or 6 months, maybe until the end of the year, and then see how that goes.
It's interesting. If I may, what are the
okay, but I thought she had somebody, a young fellow working for her. Okay. Yeah. Right. I see.
I lost all the videos. Everyone's still here?
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
Got it. Anyway, all I was going to say is that one of the ways to evaluate where you can help people is that I've seen a great number of practices that pride themselves on how great they are, but when you get right down to it, they don't have copies of the clients. That shows it's like a canary in the mine shaft.
Predominantly elder law, or she does also.
What else is undone? So it's an opportunity for you to learn more about their family and their wishes.
I was under the impression, that her practice was predominantly elder law and special needs trusts.
I see that someone is on another line.
I see.
Did you say someone's on the other line?
Yes, I'm hearing Hutch.
Yes.
On a phone call.
I see. On the conservatorship side.
Can you hear it?
Oh, he's on a phone call?
Yeah, I thought he was talking to us, but he's clearly not.
Which one? The court?
Okay.
Alrighty then. So.
Sorry about that.
No worries. Should we wrap up?
Yeah. So, we'd like to thank you for your insight, your expertise, and your knowledge, for your presentation. If you enjoyed what you learned about today and are interested in learning about more of either one of the programs, please feel free to reach out to our program director, Dr. Chen, or our program manager, Cindy Guther. You can also learn more by following the link on the slideshow page. And thank you everyone again for joining, and have a great rest of your day.